So we're just going to talk today about what this rule is, all of the implications involved with it, and what it means for you. So legal advice, I'm not a lawyer, Manuel's not a lawyer, so just want to let you guys know that, but we do want to just be here to inform you, help you understand the rules and whatnot. So the rule that we're talking about today is known as the adverse effect wage rate, and it's a methodology for the temporary employment of H-2A non-immigrants and non-range occupations in the United States. Huge language, but essentially we're just going to hear it as the change of the adverse effect wage rate methodology. So this was published by the U.S. Department of Labor's Employment and Training Administration. It was originally published for review on February 28th and actually went effective on March 30th. What Manuel was referring to earlier about the July date was when the new wage rates were posted for each of these jobs. So as Manuel was saying, in the past, all the way back in 2010, the way that the AEWR was set was every state did what's called a farm labor survey from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And that was sent out to a specific number of farmers in each of those states. The farmers would go ahead, fill out that survey based on how much they're paying for given job duties, and the government would collect that information and then ultimately put out the adverse effect wage rate, which in their mind was a fair wage to pay for farm duties in those particular states. But there was a problem with that system, and one of those problems was some states didn't actually do that farm labor survey. Alaska is one of the big ones, so they didn't actually have an adverse effect wage rate to fall back on to be able to help determine what wages would be in those states. So the U.S. Department of Labor, first of all, felt like they needed to fix that problem. They needed to come up with a standardized way of deciding what the wage rate should be in the states that don't already have some form of categorization. On top of that, they didn't feel like the current adverse effect wage system was strong enough in protecting American workers against the threat of employment of H-2A workers. They thought that farmers were posting these jobs online and posting them in a way at these low, what the government considers low AEWR rates, and the only people that would want to even consider those jobs are H-2A workers, and no Americans would apply. So what this rule does is it creates a procedure, to set AEWRs for states and regions where they don't conduct a farm labor survey. So like in Alaska. Secondly, what the rule does is it requires employers to pay higher wage rates for jobs outside of what the government considers the big six. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But these jobs are such as trucking, construction, fence erection, stuff like that. The government considers outside of the normal scope of agriculture. So what they wanted to do with this is create these higher wage rates because they believed that they would attract more American workers to these open jobs and prevent these jobs from being stolen by H-2A workers. So under this new rule, when there is no data for a particular area, the government goes and talks to the Occupational Employment Wage Statistics people. That is a group through the Bureau of Labor Statistics that they put together these groups of statistics generally in commercial fields in urban areas, and they take the wage data for, say, commercial truckers or just general commercial jobs in usually cities, big cities, and that's how they come up with the wage rates for those particular states that don't already have a farm labor survey. So to go back to that big six, The government also wants to use these OEWS wage rates for any jobs that have duties that go outside of the big 6 job titles. And those big 6 job titles are graders and sorters, ag equipment operators, farm workers, laborers, crop nursery, farm workers, farm, ranch, and aquacultural animals, packers and packagers, and ag workers, all other. So if your job duty is within those main 6, you still fall under the adverse effect wage rate. If your job title is outside of that 6, your pay rate is actually then decided based on the operational employment wage statistic, also known as the OEWS. So one good example of this that a lot of you guys will probably think of and know of in your day-to-day, if your job involves any sort of hauling of commodities, driving a semi-truck more than 26,000 pounds, the U.S. Department of Labor would consider that job a heavy trucking occupation, and that job would be assigned the OEWS wage rate. So there are some good things about this for sure. You know, some of you H-2A workers will get paid more. That is definitely good news. There will also be a set AEWR rate in every single state. So there's going to be a lot less confusion in that in states like Alaska. Now, we do know that's not a huge H-2A state, but it is still a portion of the program. But this will also help farmers find permanent American workers at these higher wage rates. So some of the bad. So this can make the H-2A program too expensive for a lot of smaller employers. Think of the mom and pop farmers that you've worked for. Some of these people, they can barely make ends meet. So the more stress you put on their business, the harder and harder it becomes to remain in the H-2A program. So another issue with this, H-2A workers will be fighting for higher paying jobs and will ignore lower normal jobs, especially ignore the jobs within the main 6, and it will make the program unstable. There's going to be a lot of workers looking to transfer around just to seek those higher wage rates from different employers. And the big thing that we're going to see, fewer H-2A employers means fewer jobs for H-2A workers. So this is one of the surveys that we did for our clients where we spoke with them. Look, if this new rule stays in place, who's going to do it? Who's going to return? Who doesn't know? And who's just going to give up on the program altogether and try to find different means of labor? So 3%, 3.17% gave us a definite, yeah, regardless of what the wages are, we'll be back. 36.27% said, we don't know. We don't know if we can budget this. We don't know if we can make this work. We're not sure if we're going to proceed doing H-2A next year. And honestly, staggeringly, 60.5% said more than likely we're not going to return next year if this rule stays in place. So here's some of the ugly parts about this new wage change. So a big problem with this is the affected job tasks were chosen very arbitrarily and with very, very little explanation, research, or even consistency with the Dole's library system. We see oftentimes you can put 2 jobs side by side with the exact same job description. All the details are exactly the same in 2 different states, and the Department of Labor are going to see those jobs in 2 different ways. One certifying officer is going to see it as one job duty, and one is going to see it as another, which creates a lot of inconsistency, not only for the employer, but for you guys looking for all of these potential jobs. The Department of Labor also seems to think that this rule change will only affect 98% of employers. And the way that they came up with this is they simply looked at all the job titles. They recognized that 98% of the job titles from last year were still within the main 6. And they said, oh, good. 98% are unaffected. But now, since the government is granularly looking at all of the job descriptions, all the duties involved, we've already seen that number drastically different with what the government is categorizing them as. In fact, we actually did a language search on all of the job descriptions that are currently in place. And actually 93% of the jobs that we apply for each year will actually be impacted by this wage change. So the Department of Labor wants to set these farm and ranch wages based on the OEWS, but it does not reflect the agricultural labor markets. And the reason why it doesn't reflect the agricultural labor market is because it's based on commercial wages. So those are wages of, say, heavy truckers, where they're going to be taking packages from Amazon across the country, and not somebody that's going to, for 1 week out of the year, get in a semi truck and, let's say bring grain to the grain elevator. Those are two completely different jobs. And I mean, the really big thing that we're going to see with this is job hopping is going to be an issue. There's going to be a lot of workers that are always looking for the next higher paying job. So I'm going to add Fran in here. All right, so another big issue that we are seeing is the H-2A program already forbids employers from paying H-2A workers more than domestic workers in similar job duties. So what they're going to have to do is not only give all of their H-2A workers raises, but also any domestic workers with their business. So any of the Americans that you work alongside will also see raises as well. On top of this, we are going to see some very large processing delays, which means your seasons will start later because they changed the way that this job description analysis works. So previously, we sent everything into the state workforce agency. They took a brief look at it. They work on housing and whatnot. The rest of it goes to the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor really worries about the job title, job description, and whatnot. But now the government wants each state workforce agency to go through each job description with a fine-tooth comb, pick out all of the different occupations that this could fall under, tell your farmer that, then they send it to the Department of Labor, but the Department of Labor then has an opportunity to disagree with the state workforce agency, and instead of the Department of Labor handling it, they send it back to the state workforce agency saying, hey, you fix it. Then the farmer has to work with the state workforce agency to fix it. Then it goes back to the Department of Labor, hoping that at that point they got it right. So it's this back and forth ordeal that will definitely add weeks into this process. It's also going to foster division and conflict between the H-2A workers. The reason being is there's going to be some farmers that do two separate applications. They're going to have some of their workers drive a truck, and they're going to have the rest of their workers do general farm labor duties. And the reason why they're going to do that is they'll only have to pay the truckers the trucking wage. Everybody else gets paid the standard wage. So there's always going to be that animosity towards the people that are allowed to drive the truck, making much higher wages. So another thing that we're seeing or expecting as a long-term effect is just the general accessibility of the H-2A program. Many employers already argue that this program is unaffordable and a very difficult barrier to entry. And the more and more expensive and difficult this process becomes, there are more and more people that are going to seek other options for their labor. So in turn, this is going to reduce the number of H-2A jobs available, and especially for companies looking for work in the more skilled job duties like running agricultural equipment. And we'll see more and more jobs appear in the picker and what the government considers lower skilled work. So any questions regarding the rule? Now's that point in time where you can use that reaction button to raise your hand. We'd definitely love to chat about it with you.
So yeah, please, guys, if you want to ask us something, please do. While some of you thought or formulate a question, the 36% that said they're not sure, out of the 14,000 employers who applied, in last year's numbers. That means 5,000 employers were unsure if they will continue. The 62% adds up to 8,600 employers' applications that could fall away. And that's across the whole H2A world for all of us. You know, there are 12,000. We think there's 14,000 South Africans who came, workers alone. What I'm referring to is just employers who indicated that they wouldn't want to continue. So there's definitely lots of implications. Hein, I see you have your hand up. We'll ask you to unmute and you can ask your question there.
Hi, Manuel. How are you?
Hey, Hein. Goed en jy?
Good. So I guess I'll ask in English because
Yeah,
maybe some
that's good.
people don't understand, or some people don't. I'm not sure. So my question is just simple. How far, or is this whole lawsuit with you and Wendell, how far are we with this? Are you guys making any progress? Is there any hope on the horizon that this might get overturned? I know, I'm not sure what the latest update is, I guess.
So, Hein, where we at this about 2 weeks ago, the Department of Labor filed their own brief to the judge to read, and there was their counter argument. Wendell now is busy drafting a counter brief again to the judge. I actually asked him, was it today? No, yesterday, does he still think we will get a day in court? He still believes so, and we hope so. One good thing is that with the time that's gone by, we were able to accumulate lots of data and examples and see the implications to this for farmers. Because just in my case, my staff told me just 3 days ago, or yesterday, they told me 3 clients said, oh, with this rule, let's leave the application. They started it and they canceled it. So we're seeing that taking place, Hein. So if you ask if there's light in the tunnel, there's 2 ways to look at it. If we lose, and so there's 3 possible outcomes. Either A, the judge says, I immediately take the rule away, delete it, remove it, Department of Labor, you can't do it, fall back to the rules as they were. The second option is they say we win, and sorry, that's the first option. The second one is they say we lose and there's no solution. We go on with it, we categorize jobs like it, and it brings the whole new world to us. And at the moment, that is where we're at, to be honest. The third option is, and that's what we really maybe hope to accomplish, is the judge says, listen, we hear you have a need, Department of Labor, to change some of the procedures, the methodology, and so on, but you cannot do it this way. You have to go back to the table, include the people that should be at the table to discuss this, and come up with a workable solution for farmers, the H2A workers, and the government, and whatever other parties are involved, like I referred to unions that's maybe in the background driving this. So, Hein, that's the 3 main possibilities. If the rule prevails, the question is, what then? And like Noah pointed out, let's assume, and I know, and people have said so to us, most probably most farmers will not stop. They need you guys. They will continue hiring H2A workers and so on. So there's a possibility 10% or just 20% of that 60% stop using H2A workers. The question is, for you, who's part of that 20%, can you survive back in South Africa without a job? You know, I said 36% was 5,000 applications. Those 5,000 applications on average represent 20,000 people in the South African H2A world, because the average farmer who uses H2A has 4 workers on his farm. That's the average. 80% of them have 4 workers. So multiply the 5,000 apps with 4 workers, 20,000 workers will be affected. Now, that won't be all South Africans. It could be others, but that would be a big chunk. Hein, I see you have a follow-up question. Please continue.
I guess it's still my hand that's up. I'll have to take it down. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess thank you for all the trouble that you guys go through and pursuing this. I mean, we're glad that somebody is fighting. I don't think this is good by any means for nobody and anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you, Manuel.
Hein, like I said in the beginning, you know, we would love to see you guys get paid more. And something we noticed in our survey, there's a lot of one bad thing that I really see that'll irritate most of you is a new guy is now going to show up. He's hired as a truck driver. If this continues, he gets paid, let's say he's in North Dakota, the rate is going to be $24 an hour in North Dakota, $26.41 if he's a truck driver. You have worked in North Dakota for 5-6 years, or maybe not put on that application for a truck driver because you're the farmer's tractor driver, operator, and sprayer operator or whatever. And because you're in that category and on that application, that brand new guy is going to make 26 and you're going to still get 17, and maybe the wage rate goes up by $1, the AEWR rate, and you're going to get 18. So that's the kind of irritation, frustration, bitterness, anger that's going to develop amongst the group. And that's why we thought this is not wise. The way they did it is not wise. Corneille, I see your hand is up, but let Peter first ask. Peter,
let me add one, and because I got one even sooner as a direct message. Heinrich asked, so is this only for farm workers, or does it include people that work at gas stations and so on as well? This is just for H2A employers and employees. That's all that this will impact. All right, Peter, you can go now.
Okay, so my thoughts has been for a while that all this is going to do, it's going to force farmers to get along with less workers. But they're probably going to be forced to pay most of their workers the higher rates, because they can't have a guy just be, for instance, a tractor operator. Let's say your truck driver falls ill. He's got no recourse to have somebody else do that job in the meantime. And concerning the 60% of guys that say they won't use the program, I think a lot of it's impulsive right now. If honestly they could find American workers to do the job, they wouldn't be using the H2A program. And unfortunately, the Department of Labor in the US is forcing farmers in the US now to experience what farmers throughout the globe is experiencing wage-wise. If, for instance, ag farmers in South Africa can survive on the high wage rates they have to pay, so can the guys over here. Unfortunately, unless everything goes autonomous, you're gonna need dependable, hardworking, honest workers at all times.
So Peter, you're partly correct. I mean, I think one solution some farmers will have is to say, okay, well, first of all, I'll have 2 applications. I'll split my 10-person crew. 6 of you are ag equipment people. I pay you the AEWR rate. The other 4 drive my trucks. I bite the bullet. I pay those 4 the high rate. So that's one solution they can have. Another one is they could say, okay, I'll take my 10 ag equipment people. I'll just not use them for truck driving. we don't know if they'll be honest about it. They might make you drive truck and you will be unhappy and call us and say, hey, I'm getting not paid. My cousin next door at that farm, he's doing the new rule. He's following it. He's paying him 26, but I'm also driving truck, but he didn't put me on a truck driver application. And now I'm here. So there's conflict, ready to happen and to explode. And, you would say, can I please move? I want to be at a farmer where they are honoring the rule, they're paying them. So those are just some day-to-day drama we're going to see. Another thing that farmers can do, and they've said it to us, we'll just reduce their hours and keep it low. That whole idea where you can work 60 hours or 70 or whatever, I'll pay the high rate, but he's working his 48 hours, that's it. And then the other part to consider that a farmer can say, to bring a South African worker over cost a farmer between $3 to $4 per hour more than if he had an American worker. So it's not cheaper to bring him, and that covers your plane ticket, your consulate fee, housing, workman's comp that he maybe did not have before H2A, because many a farmer doesn't have it. And so, sorry, Peter, were you saying something?
I think that was
No,
Arthur.
no, I
There's
wasn't.
somebody else.
Okay, so that $4 or whatever, if you take it per day, per worker, but just per one worker, works to broadly about $500 that the farmer can now, if he doesn't take an H2A guy, he can take that 500 and offer to a local guy. And that's the Department of Labor's thinking for this. If the farmers would just pay the American people more, they will come out the woodwork and be available.
Right.
And we wouldn't need H2A. So you are partly right. We know it's tough to find the people if you drive in Nebraska and it's 100 miles left, right to get to Walmart. There's no human being that can do the work. You guys have to. So we understand that. The farmers do, but there definitely is could be an impact for sure. Okay, so let Corneille maybe, or are you done, Peter? Okay, Corneille, you have a question for us?
Good evening, Manuel. Good evening, everybody. We had this discussion last night also, or yesterday, the farm talk session. The only thing that I see is going to happen, if the judge don't rule in your favor, Manuel, is that on our farm we have 3 guys. Maybe they will take only 2 back next year, and the 3rd guy is going to be in a pool. Now, what that's going to create, that the pool is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, with all the guys that's back in South Africa that also applied. And so that's going to be put a big strain on the agencies that side to get everybody placed in America. Yes, we will score if you guys don't win. We will make some money, but in the long run, will that be a better option? I don't know. I see a lot of problems coming out of this.
Yeah, yesterday, 2 days ago, I spoke to a client of 15 workers, and we were talking to him about his farm labor contract stuff, and we talked then about this AEWR rate. And he was old, the average farmer, I think, is 65 is the age. Alex, help me, or Noah. So he just said, what the hell? I'm sick and tired of all this nonsense. I'll just sell my stuff and retire. No, I bet you there's another farmer next door that'll just buy his land as quick as he can if he wants to. So that's true. And he'll have a bigger operation. But it would affect some, the smaller farms where we place people. And nobody really knows the impact. We're speculating, we make projections. The government thinks it's going to impact very few people. We differ from them because if they follow their rule, And that's another reason why we have this lawsuit for you guys who care to know. If we did not do something now, and the government is presently telling us, oh, only 2% of all the 14,000 people who apply every year will be affected. That's all. We already see that 90, if we look at statistics that we have, I can share my screen, but 86% of our clients drive trucks over 26,000 pounds. 88% of our clients drive their trucks on public roads. 89% of our clients said they have heavy trucking. 50% said they do construction. So all our clients are going to be forced to do more than one application. One for, did somebody saying something?
I think it's just Mike wasn't muted.
Okay. So the only solution they're going to have is they need an ag equipment application for some of their 10, say there's 10 workers. They're going to need an application for the mechanic because he's going to be singled out. He can't do the mechanic work without it. And then the truck driver. And then if you have a crop sprayer, he also needs to pay that crop sprayer differently. And if he makes you build anything new on his farm, he needs to have a construction pay category and application. So he now needs to pay us 3-4 times the admin fee. He pays the USCIS for every labor certification, a USCIS fee, which is presently $465, right, at the moment. And they're talking about moving it to $1,050 per application at the end of the year. So, you know, it's just bringing more and more there. Okay, Celeste, let you ask us something. I'll unmute. I need to drink water here. Please ask. Thank you.
Hello, Manuel, and everyone else. Thank you for hosting this meeting. We really appreciate it. I'm just curious, from when will this be implemented then? From next season onwards, disregarding what happens with the court case?
Noah or Alex, you want to answer?
So this has already been implemented. So it's any new applications that are, I think, got labor certificates after March 30th. They are impacted by the rule. I'm sorry, was that the question? I was answering something in the chat at the same time.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. You answered it correctly, Noah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought so.
Absolutely. So Celeste, where it really is going to hit the pulp or the fan is we getting ready to do a few thousand applications. And every farmer is going to talk to us and debate this and spend time. And that's all good and dandy. One challenge we already see for ourselves is if my 1,000 applications suddenly needs to be 2 or 3, I'm going to have to do with my staff, which I already have 35 of them, add more staff to be able to process all these applications. So that's a practical thing. Might not feel you care or worry, but that's a challenge just in my office alone. And then all those applications must go through the Department of Labor. And at best, when they are fully running and it's smooth going, they always nearly get behind every year. This past season and the year was not a bad one from their side. But there's a major bottleneck that's going to develop. So that'll mean you guys will get here much later because all this paperwork. And when we submit, and the Department of Labor differs with the State Workforce Agency, these applications are going to go back and forth. And they're going to say, like Noah said, the State Workforce Agency will be told to relook at the thing. They will categorize the job. And it'll go back again. So that's one place. Then the whole USCIS, you know, I'm talking 14,000 H2A applications alone it must go through. If that doubles to 28,000, the USCIS takes on average 2 weeks already. Just guess how long they're going to take then. Luckily, this won't affect really the consulate. Another problem I foresee, a small one, but workers coming on the wrong permit, our agents, wherever others make a mistake and send a worker on the wrong labor cert to the consulate, if that's not kept really well managed, and they end up on the wrong permit and they have to be taken off because the truck driver got put on the ag equipment one, but the farmer wants him to drive truck and now he can't. So just to help spin more at what the nightmare is that's lying ahead. Peter, you have another question for us? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
One,
Say again.
a while ago we had a phone conversation, and as the DOL clarified more on, we all know how it goes on a farm. So for instance, somebody comes over on a ag equipment operator
Yeah.
visa. If I understand this whole process, what they're trying to do or how they're implementing it is, let's say the equipment you're driving breaks down. You as the operator, will you be allowed to work on it mechanically and fix it? Or is that out of the scope of your job description?
That's a very good question, Peter. And the quick answer is, depending on what the job description said that your labor certification was done on, if there's some wording like, general maintenance, change some oil, maybe change a belt, that's okay. But if that thing needs a new gearbox and you now drag it in with a chain and another tractor to the workshop and you start taking it apart, you just crossed the line. You're now a mechanic in their books, and your farmer must pay you from that minute mechanic rates. So you can imagine the nightmare of farmers saying, what the hell, I'm not keeping track of all this. They're going to pass the buck to all of you and say, you keep track of it and tell me. The big problem that's going to really come is a year or two later and down the time when audits start taking place, especially physical audits that get generated by unhappy workers who talk to the wage and hour department. They show up, they interview the people, and they say, you said you were the truck driver, but you mentioned just the other minute ago, you also fixed the gearbox and you replaced this and that. So you actually were the mechanic too. And that's why we're doing this lawsuit, just to really clarify, because at the moment we can still live with it, if you will. But down the road, when implementation and what's the word I'm looking for, Alex? When the police shows up, the wage and hour police, what did you say?
The enforcement, yeah.
Enforcement is the word I'm looking for. That's when this is going to burn a farmer, and they're going to make them pay back wages for the domestic worker that wasn't paid the right way, that wasn't paid the same. The fact that people were used for truck driving while they're on an ag thing. So the pawpaws, this one is a ticking time bomb for down the road. That's what we have here.
And if I could just add really quickly, one of the major things that's a problem with this rule is how vague it is. Like there is this definite, like, sure, if you're changing oil, they don't consider you a mechanic. But if you're, changing something out of an engine, then yeah, you're probably a mechanic. But we're not really sure where that line is between the two. Like, at what point does someone become a mechanic? And it's a really, really tricky question, and the rule just has so little information about it, and none of the information that we've seen from the Department of Labor has been particularly helpful in clearing any of that up. So it's that sort of lack of clarity, I think, that is going to push a lot of people away from the program. I mean, if you just think about it, if you were the one who is paying all this money, bringing workers over, having to follow all these rules. If you're like not even sure what the rules really are, and you have no way of even figuring out where exactly you can't, like what you can and can't do, I mean, like a lot of people are going to be like, it's not worth the risk, and they're just going to back out because of it.
Thank you, Alex. I agree with you, Peter. Let me give Arthur a chance first, if it's okay, and we'll get back to you, and then Corneille after that. Is all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, Arthur, what did you want to ask us?
Hi, Manuel. Listen, I just want to know if you're employed as a general worker,
Yeah.
what exactly falls under a general worker? I mean, can you be entitled to do some mechanical work, not the work that a mechanic would be done? Or can you drive trucks under the rule of a general worker? On your contract, it says you're a general worker.
Yeah.
So what
do you
does
want
a general worker really means?
No,
Yeah, I think I can answer that one if you like.
please do.
And this is another tricky thing about the rule. It's sort of they take these handful of occupations, what Noah was referring to as this big six, and they kind of lump all of them together as this field and livestock worker combined category. And so anybody who has tasks that fall within that, exclusively, then you're getting paid the adverse effect wage rate. And anybody outside of that, you're potentially getting paid a higher wage rate. But the tricky part about it is that if you go to the Department of Labor's own website where they list off these different occupations and what tasks are included, those tasks do include things like driving a truck to haul crops to market. They do include things like doing maintenance on vehicles and equipment. And so we're kind of stuck in this weird gray area of like, okay, the rule says that we can do this because it's in the big six, but the rule is also saying that we can't do this without having to pay the higher wage rate. So we're sort of like, how do we figure out what exactly is okay and what's not okay?
It's definitely so difficult to find the barriers, and every certifying officer comes up with a different reasoning, a different example, a different sort of barrier to entry with everything. We have, like I mentioned earlier, we have some of the same job descriptions that we will send out in different states, and we'll get completely different answers, like not even close. Like one will be a pesticide applicator, one will be an ag equipment operator, and one will be a heavy trucker, and it's all the same language. And so it's just such an unstable system.
So I do want to say to everybody, we are working with, for instance, ag replacements. Mark Martins and I spoke today about what are they seeing that they can write in their job descriptions and present and get an approval. And we comparing notes and so on. So we're all trying our best to find a solution. The government, you can't talk to the stupid people, sorry for it. You cannot call anybody. You cannot, they put out documents called Q&As. They tell you, they repeat themselves, and there's no new light on it. So unfortunately, that's why we wanted to force a judge to look at this and come to a conclusion and say, this is nonsense. The way you guys wrote this law, no matter who you are, you did not do your homework and you did not compile it in a clear, concise and logical way. So yeah, but let Corneille, I see you have a hand, and then Peter, I'll get back to you. Corneille?
Yeah, Manuel, this question was asked last night on a Farm Talk session, and you kind of answered it, or not kind of, you did answer it. The question was asked, what if I will be coming over next year and I negotiate with the farmer, saying, listen here, I'm fine with the minimum wage at this point, what it should be. You don't have to pay me that new rate. Will that be applicable or not?
So Alex, you maybe answer Corneille so he hears it another time. I know he just wants me to say it, but I would love you to answer it if you don't mind.
We actually had something similar come up on the NCAE call yesterday, where an employer had formed some sort of an agreement with some workers, and the workers were saying, hey, hire us, and you won't have to pay us something up front. I don't remember what it was exactly. But they sort of had this, and it was a formal agreement. The workers signed it, they agreed to it. But when the time came when Wage and Hour showed up and they started looking around, they were like, no, you never paid this stuff. And the farmer said, well, yeah, but I had an agreement with the workers. They said that was okay. And Wage and Hour takes the position of, no, you can't agreement your way out of stuff. What's required by the rules, you have to pay. It can't just go away due to an agreement.
Yeah, this example that Alex mentioned, the farmer actually looked like he was in financial trouble, and he made an agreement and said, listen, guys, I can't pay you now, but I promise I'll pay you down the road. And that is a total no-no. No farmer can ask you, or even if you agree, your agreement does not count to have you suspend your pay and wait for it over time just because he can't. The one thing that's clear in the laws, when it's pay time, you have to be paid immediately, unless the bank system collapsed or unless his computer blew up and he only can pay electronically, or the bank burned down and you can't go cash your check. But other than that, so that was an interesting example. So Corneille, you cannot negotiate a lower rate. He's bound the farmer by that law and rate. And you won't get in trouble. He'll get in trouble. He can lose his labor certification and be debarred from the program, unfortunately. So, okay, Peter, one for sure, please ask. And then hopefully some of the other people want to too. Yes, Peter?
Hopefully one last question. So under this new labor law, let's say you are brought over on the highest paid code.
Yeah.
Are you allowed or not to do, let's say you come over, let's hypothetically a trucker is paid the most.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to do then mechanical work and welding and ag equipment operating, etc.? Or will it be you are a truck driver or ag equipment operator and that is it?
So you can do everything that's in the job description. So let's say that they have welding, they have mechanic work, they have ag equipment work, they have truck driving. The government's going to look all of that. They're just going to pick whatever is going to be the highest wage and assign that as the duty, but you can do everything in the job description. You'll just do the highest wage for every hour you work.
Yeah. So Peter, because all those job elements are in there, you can do other tasks, because if it was classified as a truck driver, and that's the highest rate in maybe this example, then he'll have to pay you that even if you pressure wash, even if you climb in the bin to clean the bin from the rotten grain, you have to be paid that truck wage per hour the whole season. You see, and that's also where it's so unfair, because you maybe drive truck for 2 months in the beginning of the season to empty the grain bins, get it to the elevator, and you do it again in the end of the year with harvest. But in the middle, he gives people other stuff to do, but he's now forced to pay you the whole time $26 an hour.
Yeah, and when this new rule is being commented on, some people commented and said, hey, this rule is going to be really, really dangerous to our businesses. What if you made it so we only had to pay the higher wage rate when they were actually doing the affected job duties? And the Department of Labor just came back and their response was simply, oh, don't worry about it. 98% of people are going to be unaffected. Not a big deal. It'll be fine. And to me, that's just not an acceptable answer.
Yeah. So guys, from our side, we're going to continue fighting. We've spent already $98,000 on this lawsuit, and we stand to spend another, multiply that by 18 and just think what type of waste of money that is for Rand exchange. And we haven't seen the end yet. We still need the lawyers all in a courtroom. So there's lots more to spend here. And your farmers contributed because it's important for them. They know they need you. They want you guys. They just want a better working system. So please know that nobody has done this to do you in or prevent you from making more money or something. We actually plan, after I read your comments, to draft a document to our farmers a little bit, and especially if we can get this law taken out, we would push that even more. If the law stays, our focus is going to change a bit, but if the law gets taken away, we will try and educate especially all our clients to consider some of the stuff you guys said, like when I return, I should be paid more than another guy who starts new. When I return a few years, I would like my pay to increase proportionally. And maybe if I do more responsible work than a new guy that just shows up. And also the dangling, for instance, which is against the law of green cards in front of workers to say, hey, come back, I'll get you your green card, and then nothing happens. So we got a very nice bunch of stuff out of that survey, and we're going to package it to tell farmers, listen, if you want to listen to the farming community or H2A, especially South African farming community, take note of these things. These are things that the guys ask that you please change in your management style and management procedures and so on. So hopefully that can come out of it too. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. We'll keep you guys posted. We'll, as soon as more happens, we'll every time let your farmers know, and we can have another session. We can send emails to you guys and so on. If it goes, whichever way it goes after the judge decides, we'll have another meeting like this, because we'll have to then talk about maybe how to handle this. You know, if it continues, what you guys must help do. And if it gets the rule gets vacated or deleted or taken away, then maybe it's a different one to a conversation. But yeah, we can still have one. So I want to thank you guys. We've been an hour. I don't see any more hands, and appreciate it. Please know we pray for all of you guys at our office every week, that you are safe, blessed, that your families are in good shape, that the Lord takes care of them, and that your relationships with your farmers are great. So it's not that we, you know, just sit there and do push papers around. We every week, and my staff is on this call, 3-4 of them that I see can confirm that. So we want to thank you for all your hard work, and please be safe out there as you get into the harvest season, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, Noah. Thanks, Alex, for putting this together.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys. You can watch the political speeches from the GOP. I think it's on. Bye. See you.
Good night, guys. See you next time.
Bye-bye.